A sub-boss is the last obstacle the player has to overcome before facing the final villain of a game. In the King of Fighters series, it can be a team composed of unique fighters, but more often it's just one individual with enough strength and sometimes cheapness to prematurely end the player's adventure. While many of these characters serve as henchmen for the final bosses of their games, others have different reasons for standing in the way. Unlike the top 10 bosses video, the order of this list is not based on difficulty, but rather on how memorable these characters are. Also, it is important to mention that mid-bosses are not included, for they deserve their own video, and I intend to make one for them in the future. So without further ado, here's the top 10 sub-bosses in the KOF series. Number 10. The 96 Bosses Team. The reason why these awesome characters are positioned so low in this list is because they weren't presented as real bosses when they first appeared in KOF 96, despite being called the Bosses Team. It wasn't until the Ultimate Match version of KOF 98 when they became a proper sub-bosses team. Depending on the player's playthrough, the final boss will be either Omega Rugal, Genitz or Orochi, and you can already tell which one of them you're going to face when the fifth team is revealed. The 96 Bosses team come right before the fight against Genitz. Their AI is much more aggressive than it used to be in 96. Geese and Krauser retained their dreadful moves from their original games. Thankfully, they are much less cheaper now. Ironically, Mr. Big, who is supposed to be the weaker of the trio, is the one that I personally struggle the most against. His techniques are surprisingly fast and can close gaps between him and his opponents almost immediately. Also, the unique theme of each one of them plays in the background when the character in question is fighting, and let's not forget their very beautiful stage. All these elements make the 96 Bosses team one of the most memorable sub-bosses in KOF.
I'll chisel your gravestone. Sleep well.
Introduced in the second game of the Maximum Impact sub-series, Louise is one of the few sub-bosses who are well-meaning and have good intentions. She participates to the KOF tournament in search of her missing father, but in reality her motives are much more complex. She is determined to kill the main antagonist of the game, Jivatma, to avenge the murder of many of her own people. Louise also seems to know a lot about the game's main heroes, the Moira brothers, and offers to help Alba finding his younger sibling when he disappeared after Jivatma's defeat. She is extremely talented in fighting and has some impressive abilities such as levitation, teleport, and energy manipulation, which allows her to create multiple types of short and long-ranged attacks. Despite having the look of a young woman in her 20s, Louise is believed to be hundreds, if not thousands of years old. And in case you didn't figure it out already, she's an alien. The most recent entry in this list, Antonov, is a self-declared champion and a successful businessman who used his wealth to buy the KOF brand and organized its 14th edition. Despite the appearances, Antonov is a charitable man with a heart of gold. He loves animals and won't hesitate to save those in need, even if that means risking his own life. When he fights, Antonov relies on his incredible raw strength. The use of key energy or elemental attacks means nothing to him. His simple yet devastating punches coupled with his fearsome kicks are more than enough to get the job done. Personally, I love this character. He reminds me a lot of Mr. Satan from Dragon Ball Z, except Antonov is actually strong and equal to the other fighters of his world, if not stronger. And after getting sick of all the effeminate fighters introduced in the previous saga, I hope we get to see more characters like Antonov in the next games. The older twin sister of Chizuru Kagura, Maki, was the original heiress of the Yatta clan and the possessor of their sacred mirror, but when she was killed by Genitz, she passes her title and treasure to her sister. We first saw her in 96. She challenges the Sacred Treasures team to test their might and see if her sister was ready to face the Orochi clan, but her presence in that game is considered non-canonical. However, in 2003, we finally got to see what Maki is capable of. When Chizuru was mind-controlled by those from the past, she created a copy of her dead sister thanks to the power of the Yata mirror, then summoned the illusion to fight by her side right before the final showdown with Mukai. Maki is the stronger of the Kagura sisters, having all of Chizuru's strengths and none of her weaknesses. The skill gap between the two is immediately noticeable once they switch places. Maki is much more faster and hard to keep up with, and her moves are nearly unpredictable. But all things considered, let's not forget that the sub-boss of KOF 2003 was nothing more than an illusion of the Yata mirror. Something tells me that the real Maki was capable of much more. I hate this guy. Saiki might not be the toughest sub-boss to beat in this list, but he is by far the most irritating. Even before he revealed his true form, the ancestor of Ash Crimson was presented as an awful individual with a punchable face. He looks down on humans and considers them as nothing more than insects. He also mistreats his devoted followers and doesn't forgive the smallest mistake from any of them. Mukai learned this the hard way when he was brutally killed just because he didn't immediately go where his master has ordered him to. But what makes Saiki the most insufferable sub-boss is his ability to ruin the pacing of the combat, either by constantly trapping the player with his gooey fireballs, or by grabbing and beating them while taking his sweet time. The latter is the worst. I can't stand him when he does it. He loves doing it all the time and seeing his victims suffer at his own pace. Saiki doesn't know when to quit either. Even after being defeated, he possesses Ash's body and comes back in a new form with even more irritating moves, but I already talked about that in a previous video. If the order of this list was based solely on difficulty, then Original Zero would be hands down on the number 1 position. This top agent of Nets was for many players the final boss of KOF 2001, as they never managed to beat him, which is probably for the best, knowing that Ignis, the true boss of the game, is on a totally different level. Original Zero shares many moves with Cloned Zero, the main antagonist of KOF 2000. He mainly uses his outfit to attack and has control over a mysterious power called Dark Energy. What differentiates the original though is that he doesn't fight alone. His team is composed of a gigantic black lion, a deadly master assassin, and the final boss of a previous installment. Unlike his clone who betrayed Ness and tried to conquer the world on his own, Original Zero remained faithful to the Syndicate till the very end. It is not confirmed, however, if he died during the crash of the spaceship or if he's still alive, waiting for the perfect timing to make his comeback. Like many KOF players, I was shocked when I discovered that this beautiful young lady is actually a dude, and that was enough to make him one of the most unforgettable characters in the series. However, the twist about his gender is far from being the only thing that earns him the 4th position of this list. Shion is a member of those from the past and serves as the last challenge before facing the game's main villain, Magaki. Once defeated, his boss threw him in another dimension and kind of forgot about him, which is later revealed to be a huge mistake when Shion kills Magaki with his spear when the latter tried to escape through the same dimensional gate. During combat, Shion is a master in wielding different types of weaponry, most notably his spear and rope dart, but he can also defend himself just fine with his bare hands. And this leads us to mention his animation. Each of Shion's stances is incredibly detailed and beautifully animated. Put it simply, his sprite animation is a work of art and is yet to be topped in the series. I don't know about you, but I would love to see him as a guest character in Samurai Showdown. I think he would fit right in there. What do you think?
One of them flying VFR, the federal area to protect 3.
The head of the Kusanagi clan and the father of the main protagonist, Kyo, Saisyu is the first character to fill the role of a sub-boss in the series. He was first presented as an NPC in K-Wave 94 when he challenged Rugal in a fight but lost and was badly wounded. The next time we meet him, he was introduced as a bodyguard of the crime lord after being brainwashed by Vice. Sadistic as he is, Rugal ordered Saisyu to kill his son and his teammates to avenge his defeat by their hands in their last encounter. Luckily, Kyo succeeded in subduing his father without injuring him too much. That was the official canon of the game. In reality, the player has to do whatever it takes to vanquish Saisyu without taking too much damage, because unlike in other games, the team does not reset after the fight against Saisyu and the player has to go face good old Omega Rugal with whoever is left in his team. This was easier said than done though, for Saisyu was no pushover and was totally capable of taking down the entire team all by himself if the player wasn't cautious. This layer of urgency and stress is what made the combats against Saisyu so memorable. The first female boss in the series, Chizuru, was a nightmare to deal with when she first appeared as a sub-boss of K-Wave 96. Many considers her to be harder than Genitz himself, and although I don't necessarily agree with them, I can perfectly see where they're coming from. The heiress of the Yatta clan organized that edition to attract Kyo and Iori in order to help her stop the Orochi clan in their mission to resurrect their master. She challenges Team Japan in the finals so she can test the strength of the Kusanagi heir herself, and what a test it was. Canonically, she is supposed to be the weaker of the Kagura sisters, but try saying that to her AI. Chizuru was brutal in 96. The reach of her uppercut was insane and deals tons of damage. She can easily overwhelm the player with her mirror images, which are hard to react to. There is, however, an AI exploit against her that makes the combats much more manageable, but still, one will never forget the first time he had to deal with this beautiful yet unforgiving sub-boss. Yes, they are the winners of this list as well. I love the Orochi team, as you may have already guessed, and as is the case for many other veteran K-Wave fans, they are my favorite characters in the entire franchise. This rock band was presented as a regular team named New Faces. They managed to fool in-game characters and real people alike with their warm and friendly attitude. But of course, it was just a facade. When the tournament ends, they reveal their true intentions, and with it, their real powers. Gameplay-wise, their regular abilities are completely changed once they adopt their Orochi form. What was so memorable with the Orochi team was this end-of-the-world vibe that emanated during their fight. The stage was seemingly set in the middle of nowhere, and we could see it changing and evolving according to each member's unique power. By the time Yashiro entered the combat, the stage was already shaking and swimming in lava, and let's not forget their awesome theme that played in the background. Simply epic. The best part was that they weren't as nearly as cheap like other SNK bosses. The combat against them was challenging but fair, something that is pretty rare in this franchise. For all these reasons, the Orochi team are the most memorable sub-bosses in the King of Fighters series. I would like to know which sub-boss is your favorite and why. Also, as you may know, the vote for the character of the next lore video has been decided and I'm already working on it, which means you can start suggesting the next fighter down in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up if you did, and why not consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks for watching.